Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Interviewing the Legends. I'm your host, Ray Shasho. Galahad was formed in 1985 just for fun, playing roughly half covers like Genesis, Zeppelin, Rush, Black Sabbath, Focus, and Marillion, and half original material. Galahad then supported a few well-known progressive bands that were coming up at the time. Then after mixing it with the slightly bigger boys, Galahad decided to take it more seriously and began playing only original material, resulting in the release of their first proper album in 1991. Nothing Is Written, which was purely self-financed and released independently, but which went on to sell several thousand copies. The success of Nothing Is Written was also helped by the fact that the band received substantial airplay on BBC Radio 1, especially on the Radio 1 rock show hosted by the late great Tommy Vance. The band then landed themselves with deals in the UK, Japan, and Germany. 2021 saw the release of the remixed 1998 album Following Ghosts on a limited double vinyl, which is available in standard black, gold, and a very limited red and orange splatter version. Galahad Electric Company, featuring Dean and Stu, also released a second Lockdown album, Soul Therapy on CD. Galahad's long-awaited 11th studio album, The Last Great Adventurer, which features Mark Spencer on bass, guitar on a brand new Galahad album for the first time ever, was released in October of 2022. Please welcome lead vocalist and founding member of prog-rock group Galahad, Stu Nicholson, to Interviewing the Legends. Hello, Stu.
Hi there. Yeah, I think Legends pushing it slightly, but...
You guys put out enough material to be called Legend, okay?
Indeed, we say, well, we're getting old now, so we're sort of part of the furniture.
Well, old kind of means legend.
Yeah.
I'm noticing what is behind you there. Are those CDs or what are they?
Yeah, I'm talking to you in my sort of music room,
Okay.
where we do a lot of recording of the vocals for the albums, especially since lockdown,
Right.
because we get into the studio. So yeah, that's basically all a lot of our albums and a few EPs and whatever on the wall, just to remind me what I've done, really.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's also some double albums and records. They're all dotted around the house, but
Right.
it's just it's a nice thing to have.
Sure,
So,
it is. The Last Great Adventurer. I love the album, by the way. It's awesome. I gave it 5 stars. I'm going to talk about a few tracks. It opens up with a live, modern progressive rock with electronic trappings. It's got great energy. Talk about the opening track.
yeah, we wanted to start the album with something punchy. Quite often we'll start albums with a long, slow build up, and we thought, well, let's mix it up a bit. So we thought we'd start the album with that one. And also it's and I love the sentiment of the song. It's a very positive way to start an album. And effectively the idea of Alive is that it's a kind of it's a tribute to fans and people who've followed us over the years, really. If you read the lyrics, and people who've come to the gigs in all weathers, people who've bought the albums and supported us through thick and thin over 30 years, or 38 years this year, which I can't believe I'm actually old enough to have been in a band for 38 years, but 38 years this year. And I'm looking at myself thinking, my God, I look old. But yeah, so that's sort of a sort of homage, I suppose, to everyone that's followed us, and of course people like yourselves, radio stations, press, people that have given us the time of day, which, believe you me, in the past wasn't so easy.
Right.
In these days, I think prog and rock, there's not so much prejudice. I think maybe it's to do with the internet or the way people consume music, but in the 80s it was a kind of dirty word, really. So but these days it seems to be more acceptable to mention the dreaded prog word.
There's a lot of great new prog rock bands out there, and I'm bringing in a lot of those guys from all over the world to the United States, because I'm really taken by these guys. They're great musicians. I listen to a station called Morrow.com. It was
Hmm.
all prog. And when I like a song, immediately I contact the artist. I mean, I've had a guy, Ben Craven from Australia recently,
Yeah.
Ross Jennings from Haken.
Well,
I
Ross
mean,
Ross
they're
comes
all,
from Bournemouth, where I live,
oh,
basically.
really? Oh,
Oh
Ross?
yeah, Dorset as well. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Very good. Yeah, those guys are great, man. They really are, you
He
know?
actually took photos for our last photo shoot for Prog magazine a few years ago
Oh,
because he's a
okay.
photographer as well.
I didn't know that. You
Man
didn't
of all
tell me
talents.
that. But you guys, I've been following you guys for a while. And when was the last time you guys actually played in the States?
Well, we only played once in the States. We were supposed to play a second time, and for some reason it didn't come off. It was at Rossfest,
Ozfest,
2010,
right?
was it? I think. Yeah, in Pennsylvania, wasn't it? I think. Yeah. But yeah, it's a long time ago. And to be honest, the American audiences were great, really positive, really friendly, and much more so than some of the English audiences.
Well, American audiences love prog. We go way back with prog. And
Mm,
it's one of those genres that we love and that the English invented, basically. You know,
mm.
the English should be very proud of Prague. By the way, I tell every Brit that is a prog rock artist, you should be very proud, man. Because it's not easy music to play, and you guys invented it.
Mm. Yeah, well, we try our best. We sort of fumble early days, but we've tried. Yeah, over the years, obviously the band's changed a lot as well. And I think as soon as we started taking it a bit more seriously, we tried a bit harder. Put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Next track, Omega Lights. I love that one. Very prog track.
Yeah.
That's a story about a piece of land, right? A beach called Sandbanks near Pool Harbor. Is that what that's all about?
Yeah, Pool Harbour. It's not far from where I live, and it's just one of my favourite places. It's a beautiful beach, part of the Bournemouth beach along the coast. It's about 7 miles, very sandy,
Hmm.
lovely in the summer. I prefer to go there in the evenings in the summer when all the holiday makers have gone, and it's just getting dark, and you've got the lights, the twinkly little lights over the sea and over the
Right.
harbour. And it's just a magical sort of place. And me and my missus, we love it. And I guess the song is a kind of love song to the area, but also it's just nice to go there with friends, family, and what have you. And no, I've always loved it. In fact, when I was a kid, I had a blue and white big beach ball, and unfortunately the tide took it out, and I never saw it. So, Dad, could you get the ball, please? And he said no. So yeah, I lost my beach ball. But everything other than that, it's always been very positive.
How do you write a song about a special place in your memory like that? Is that hard to do? I can see writing a book about it or something like that, but lyrics has got to be a little bit tougher, maybe.
Yeah, it is a bit. I mean, I think quite a lot of the time sometimes it's just a little bit of inspiration, and sometimes you'll write a song and it will just sort of flow, it'll just come to you.
Right.
And all I was doing was picturing all the times I've had down there with various people, with my wife, with Lynn, and and friends, family, etc., and the scenery. And it kind of just I had all these images in my head, and it kind of wrote itself in a way. And that was one of the songs that didn't take long.
Hmm.
Some songs can take months or years. You keep
Right.
putting them down, coming back to them, but that one actually came together really well. And the reason it's called Omega Lights, oddly, when Dean sends me ideas for songs, he always
Right.
gives them a working title, quite often based on a sound that he's used on his keyboard or something. And
Really?
ironically, that was the sound he was using on one of his samples or keyboards. But I thought, actually, that really works well because Omega, is like the end, the evening, the end of the day, and it's all about the lights and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of fitted the actual lyrics. So that's never happened before. Normally change the titles because they're ridiculous sounds or names, So, but this one actually worked really well. In a way, it kind of inspired the song.
It's great when it
Which,
works out like that, you know?
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
with that, yeah. Sorry, I'm a bit thirsty. I just haven't made a cup of tea.
Hey, Whatever it takes. I've interviewed guys that were eating dinner and drinking wine, you know, so yeah, I'm used
Yes,
to it, man.
bit early for what.
Blood, Skin, and Bone, which is a great title. Um, Heard a little Arabic Hindu flair hints in that song, which was kind of cool. I like that. That track reminds me of a soundtrack to a movie in a way,
Really?
and it's got some awesome guitar work as well.
Yeah, Lee did very well on that one. I must admit, he's a great guitarist anyway,
Yeah,
but he excelled on that. He came up with some really good ideas, and no, we were really pleased with the song overall. We weren't sure initially, but I think it all came together. It all worked really well. And
you
like
know,
you said, Eastern sounds as well, and Dean's very good at that. They're coming up with different ideas, and we just like trying different things.
sure. You know, a word is coming up a lot now in prog music is cinematic. You know,
Mm,
they're sticking that name in there, and it makes sense.
that's
Prog has
true.
always been kind of cinematic. You know, you can always use those songs and soundtracks easily.
Mm, mm. Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I've always said that. I've always thought there's a massive correlation between prog music because of the scope and the
Yeah,
size and the length of tracks yeah, it would make great, like you say, great soundtracks. Definitely.
exactly. I'm waiting for a James Bond soundtrack that's coming from a prog band.
Have
That's
you heard?
next.
I tell you what, not that I'm trying to plug anything, but Empires Never Last, which is an album we released in 2007, I think. The actual track we re-recorded it as an orchestral track,
Right.
and I think you can put it online somewhere. But we've actually said it sounds quite Bondy.
It does.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite a
Yeah.
Bond kind of sound. But so we at one point we even thought about maybe putting it forward, but we kind of never got around to it. But yeah, it's got a very kind of a Bond type sort of sound to it, basically. So
Yeah.
if anybody,
How do you get a hold of those guys that are in charge of soundtracks for Bond movies? You know,
I don't know, try and maybe get hold of Cubby Broccoli's daughter, I suppose.
right.
I even know what they've probably got agents. We've got agents. We've got agents.
I know. I know. And you know, there's going to be a new Bond movie coming out pretty soon. As soon as they find the next Bond, you know, I don't
That's
think
it.
they're
Who's going to be Bond? Who knows?
exactly, exactly. I'm going to miss Daniel Craig for sure. He was great.
He
He's one of
was
my
good.
favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure when they started, and I thought, actually,
Right.
no, he grew into it. And no, I thought he was great, and my missus thought he was great as well.
Yeah. Sean
Either time.
Connery was the most suave. You
Oh
know,
yes, yes,
he was the coolest, but Daniel Craig was the more realistic Bond.
yeah.
You
And,
know.
and Roger kind of took the mickey a bit, didn't he?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, isn't the eye going up?
Exactly. Exactly. That franchise, man, that's lasted so many years. It's amazing. It's
It is.
62, 61, something like that.
Yeah, it's older
Yeah.
than me. Blimey.
Yeah. Enclosure. You know what Enclosure reminded me of? I mean, it doesn't sound like this, but it reminded me just the way the music flowed. Epitaph from ELP. You know, it kind
Oh,
of had that
yeah,
a little bit, you know. Made me
possibly.
think of
Yeah,
Epitaph.
yeah. I mean, again, that was a piece of music, really. And initially, I wasn't sure what to do with it. I'd written the lyrics.
Right.
I didn't know whether to sing them or whether to talk them or do a sort of middle ground. And I think it was a kind of middle ground in the end because it's an old English poem,
Hmm.
but it's it's kind of it's very pertinent today as well. So I thought, yeah, it worked really well in the end. And again, it was a bit of an experiment, but luckily, it seems to have worked.
It's one of my favorite tracks on the album, I think.
Yeah, cheers. And
Enclosure,
Dean did a
yeah.
great job on the arrangement.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic. And of course, The
Mm.
Last Great Adventurer, which is a long 10 minutes and 35 seconds. Very cool jam. And it's got some sexy jazzy parts in it too, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I,
the idea of that, as you probably know, because my dad's actually on the front cover, so he's now all over the internet. He doesn't quite get it, but he's 87. But no, he did a lot of climbing back in the 50s and quite took big mountains in Europe and what have you. And I've always wanted to write a song about him,
right.
and started that a few years ago, and I sort of managed finish it and what have you. And then at the end, because he wasn't massively into music, but he did like jazz back in the day. And his favorite drummer was Gene Krupa, who was a massive
incredible.
So that little jazzy section right at the end is a kind of nod to that background.
Yeah.
And you've got sort of the way it finishes, as you know, it's like a kind of jazz club atmosphere. So at the end,
exactly,
lights up a cigarette. Obviously, you can't do that now, but you know, back in the day. And it's just, I just love the whole atmosphere of that. And I'm kind of, it's like scat singing at the end. I just improvised it. And we just took the kind of best version. So I did about 6 times, and we just sort of took the best version. And yeah, no, I'm really pleased with the whole track, to be honest.
You guys are very good at jazz. You ever think about doing a full-blown jazz album or jazz fusion type thing?
I'm up for anything. I actually quite like singing in that style.
Right.
The irony is, I love my rock music. I love my heavy rock music and my prog rock. But oddly, I think personally, my voice is more akin to kind of softer stuff, really. No matter how hard I push it, to me, it never sounds that hard. Other people say different things, but of course, you've always got a different perspective on how you sound yourself, you know.
Right.
But no, I do like singing kind of more balladic kind of tracks and what have you sometimes.
You got a great voice, by the way.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
really
and it's still holding up just about.
Yeah, exactly. Which is amazing. I guess you're not a smoker, right?
No.
Yeah, that would definitely deepen your voice. You were a smoker. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the range is pretty much the same. I don't think it's ever changed.
Yeah.
And luckily, I haven't had any real problems like, you know, Fish or dear old Elton. You know,
right.
But yeah, no. Fingers crossed. It'll carry on for a few years yet.
Good. Awesome. I tell you, my favorite track on the album is actually a bonus track, and it was the one you wrote with Neil Pepper.
Ah, right, yeah. Another Life Not Lived.
What a song, man! Another Life Not Lived. That's a beautiful track.
Yeah. That really is. No, thank you. That was the irony was Neil was very ill at the time when we wrote that track. He actually had. He only survived another year or two after we wrote that song. But it was actually about a friend of mine's son who contracted cancer when he was 15.
Oh man.
So I think he saw his 16th birthday, and that was it. And I remember talking to his parents about it, and you could just, oh dear, you just can't imagine obviously what they're going through. And the song is kind of, I'm trying to imagine what it would be like, from my perspective, and theirs as well. But again, that was a song that kind of just happened because of talking to them about it and talking to my friend about it as well, you know, who is actually the young lad who died is her nephew, get it right. That was quite heavy going, but no, we wrote it a long time ago and finally managed to get it onto this album.
It's a beautiful song. I love it.
Thank you.
Prog rockers are finally realizing to edit and do these, edit for play on radio. You know, in the past they didn't give a crap. You know, it's a 15-minute track and that's the way it's going to be. But you did it. You had a couple of songs and you edited them for radio play, which is smart. You know, Ben Craven did the same thing. You know, and I told him the same thing. Because I loved his latest album as well. Yeah, it's a smart thing to do. Is it working? Are stations playing the edited versions?
Yes, it has been played on that I know of. A few stations locally, and well, it's definitely in this country. And like you say, I think a lot of the prog stations online on the internet now they'll play the long tracks because that's what. But a lot of the more commercial radio stations, like local commercial radio stations in the UK, probably the States as well, Canada, whatever, they literally won't play anything unless it's less than 3 or 4 minutes long. So on the last album that we did, Seas of Change, which was literally one 45-minute piece of music, we got absolutely zilcho airplay. Although we did some we did some edits that were a bit longer, so that helped a little bit. But yeah, it was just trying to, you know, broaden our horizons a little, or try and broaden our horizons in terms of opportunities to get airplay.
Sure.
I mean, it's hard enough as a prog band as it is to get onto, you know, get played on most commercial stations. The BBC these days, there's absolutely no outlet for that kind of stuff at all.
They've always been tough, the BBC, about music, even rock music, and then they had to go out and do pirate stations, you know, and things like that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there was a rock show in the 70s to the 90s of Tommy Vance, as you mentioned earlier, and that was great for us. We got so much publicity out of that. And it's funny these days, even though you've got the internet and so many platforms on which to promote your music, so is everybody else. There's so much noise, and it's trying to get above all that, you know. And even these days, the major national radio stations, TV stations, if you can get on those, that still is the best way of getting to an audience, you know, because it's there in front of you, you know, on the telly or on the radio or whatever. And it's weird, you know, even in these days of all these different avenues, it's still one of the main ways to get known.
Yeah. But I miss the old days, you know, like Top of the Pops and Dick Clark's American Bandstand, you know, I mean, Ed Sullivan, you know, once you got on those shows, you're in, you know, you made it.
Yeah. And also over here, we had a thing called the Old Grey Whistle Test.
Yeah, that's right.
Was on late in the evenings, and that played all the more obscure stuff. You know, you got bands like Edgar Winter on there, which you'd never get on mainstream, generally. And was it him? Was it them? Did they do Frankenstein? Was it
Frankenstein? Yeah, Edgar Winter.
And bands like Focus, you know,
Hocus Pocus.
Exactly. And Sylvia. And when we started, we did Hocus Pocus and Sylvia back in the day. And no, it's been an interesting journey, put it that way.
You did Hocus Pocus. Did you do the whistling and all that? Did you do the whole song?
Not very well.
That's a hard song to do, man.
I still do it as well.
Jeez. I don't know how that guy does what he does. This is incredible. He's having a hard time now, though. If you watch him now, there's another guy doing it.
That doesn't surprise me. But, but no, they're still a great band. You know, we've played a few times at various festivals, and it amazes me the energy he's got. He must be in his 70s now. You know,
he's got to be. He's got to be in his 70s.
Yeah.
Carl Groom, he's an interesting guy, huh? Who's really done a lot for the band.
Oh yeah, Carl's great. We sort of regard him as our kind of George Martin in a way. He's like our sort of sixth member. And when we started working with Carl, it was kind of the first time that we'd worked with someone who seemed to really understand what we were trying to get at and what we were trying to achieve. And he's had a certain empathy with the band, and he's got a great manner. He's always very calm, and he'll always say, "Oh, why don't you try this or try that?" And if he doesn't like it, he'll say, "I'm not sure that works." And there's no tantrums. And he's also an amazing musician and guitarist. Obviously,
he's a guitar player,
and but no ego. You know, it's amazing. You know, unusual for a guitarist, but no ego.
Wow.
And but no, he's a great guy, and you know, we'll use him for as long as we can. You know,
exactly.
And I mean, he did a great job with Last Great Adventurer, because obviously there was COVID, and we recorded the drums before COVID. Luckily, we got Spencer's drums recorded in the studio. Then everything shut, and we managed to record all our different parts in our different houses, and we all got the Pro Tools set up. And I set up on my computer as well, and managed to record all the vocals. And we literally sent everything to Carl, and he kind of sort of effectively pieced it all together, and he did such a great job.
Boy, what a pleasure to have a guy like that on your team, you know?
Oh yeah, and it makes a lot of the production, to the sound, and a lot of people have said it's one of the best sounding, crisp sounding Galahad albums that we've released, which is ironic considering we didn't record most of it in a studio.
Wow, it's amazing.
Or in a professional studio, should I say?
Yeah. Well, he was in a metal band, right? Called Threshold, a prog metal band. Yeah.
It is, yeah. I think they released a new album as well.
Really?
Dividing Names, I think it's called. But he'd be a good guy to chat to, actually.
Yeah.
Carl. Yeah.
Huh. Well, tell him I'm looking for him.
Yeah.
You got another album that's going to be coming out, right? Maybe at the end of this year. It's called The
Yeah.
Long Goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stu, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean when I'm saying the long goodbye, that doesn't mean you're
No.
okay. All right.
Obviously, people might think that's one of the reasons why we thought the title would be quite funny, because people are going to go, "Oh, hang on a minute,
Yeah,
is it a bit like
exactly.
Final Cut or something?" You know,
Yeah.
not the Final Cut. No, it's the actual song, "The Long Goodbye," is the main song on the album. It's 13 minutes long, and you were talking about cinematic music. The
Hmm.
end section I'm really pleased with, because it's a couple of minutes. It's basically an orchestra. It's just, and it's the first time we've done pure orchestration ever, really, and it
Huh.
just sounds big. And it's one of my it's one of my favorite endings to any song, and I'm quite pleased the fact it's one of ours. But
Wow.
but the song itself is actually about early onset dementia, hence The Long Goodbye.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I watched a film. I don't know whether you've heard of it. It's called Still Alice.
Hmm.
And it just really got to me. It just, in fact, now I've got goosebumps thinking about it. And it's basically about a university lecturer in the States who suddenly realized she's forgetting things, and she's forgetting where she is. And she's a highly intelligent person. And the irony is that the subject she lectures is all about the way that the brain works and all that sort of stuff. So, and I think she got an Oscar for it. I forgot the name of the actress now. That's bad, isn't it? But
I'll look it up.
yeah. But yeah. So that's basically what that song is about, and it'll be interesting to see what people think, because it's written in the first person, as if I've kind of got it.
Wow.
So yeah, it was an interesting. Then I did a bit of research, and I've got a few family members who've also obviously suffered. I think most people have these days,
I know.
who suffer from dementia. My aunts and uncles, and my nan, and one of my uncles, one of my granddads, and yeah. So that's sort of whereas Last Great Adventure was the centerpiece of the last one, Long Goodbye is the centerpiece of this one.
Right.
And again, it's based around, and there's 6 other tracks similar to Last Great Adventure. So
I'm looking forward to that. Definitely.
Yeah, she is.
My mom had dementia. She had Alzheimer's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But she lived till 93. That was good. But the last few years, we took care of her. We took care of her, my mom and dad, for a long time. Yeah. But it's tough when they get that. Very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think my father, unfortunately, has got signs of it at the moment.
Mhm.
He's 87. I lost my mum a couple of years ago in COVID to cancer, unfortunately. So he's been on his own. So he's been struggling. And of course, when you haven't got other people to interact with all the time, that doesn't help. So I try and go around there as much as I can. Sort of. If I went over earlier on, I took him a meal.
Yeah.
For tonight. But
so your dad was he climbed mountains. Did he do a lot of things like that, or?
Yeah, he used to climb mountains. He knew various people. A guy called Eric Shipton, who was quite famous in the UK back in the 50s and 60s, who used to go on expeditions over to the Himalayas.
Wow.
And my dad used to climb mainly in Europe, but he was actually invited to an expedition to the Himalayas to climb K2 and Everest. But the problem is, in those days, a lot of the people who used to do this, probably still are now, they're quite wealthy and they can afford it, and they haven't got any worries. So a lot of these adventurers are actually quite wealthy.
Yeah.
So they have to, worry about the finances. But of course, back in those days, my dad, he lived at home. He'd lost his dad. So he was basically bringing the money in to look after his mum and his aunt. They lived together. So effectively, he couldn't go because he had to work, which is a shame. But he had some good climbs, in the UK and in Europe. And he worked on Concorde, for example, and worked on things, and when you look at it, you think, my God, he's had such a much more interesting life than I. Or maybe just different.
Just different, yeah. If I climbed a mountain, I'd fall. No doubt about it. I wouldn't make it.
Yeah, I did a bit of climbing and abseiling when I was sort of in my late teens, early 20s, because obviously then in those days you had no fear, you just did
Yeah,
it.
you just
Whereas now
did. Yeah.
I just think about it too much.
I would too.
Yes.
What am I doing up here?
How do I get down?
Yeah, yeah. I want off
Yeah,
the mountain now. I just
but
want to mention Following Ghosts is now available on double gatefold vinyl as well.
mm,
It's so cool how vinyl records are different colors now. I mean, they're really getting creative, aren't they?
yeah,
Available in red vinyl or available in orange, you know?
yeah, yeah. It's a way of trying to obviously get people interested, and I mean, we the last great adventure of vinyls should be ready in the next few weeks. They
Right.
take much longer than we hoped because
Yeah.
obviously, from what I gather, there's not enough pressing plants, not enough
Right.
material. All the big record companies have cottoned onto it, So we've had to wait, but we're going. I think we're doing a black one. We're doing a green and black sort of marble effect, and we're doing a red and black splatter effect as well.
Okay.
So that'll
Very
be
cool.
interesting. And there'll be two different covers. So the black one
Hmm.
will be the normal sort of leathery kind of book
Right.
kind of, yeah, and then the others that'll be the cover.
Yeah, I saw that. There are two different colors. I
Yeah,
noticed that. Yeah.
yeah. So basically, there'll be two different covers, which will be
Hmm.
interesting. So we thought, well, might as well, and they
Yeah.
both work in their own
Yeah.
ways.
They look great. Okay.
Yeah.
What about live dates? When is that going to happen?
Well, yeah, interesting. I mean, we obviously initially we had to cancel everything because of COVID, but also not a lot of people realise that Spence, our drummer, actually he had a brain tumor about 17 years ago,
Oh my goodness.
which he had taken out, and we
Yeah.
actually did it in Poland, which you can get online and buy, which he's playing, and he's actually got the tumor. Then, when he got back to the UK, he had it basically taken out.
Right.
Took him a long time to recover. He had to learn to drum again because it
Right.
affected one side of his body. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, it came back and started growing again.
Oh gosh.
So we had to have an operation to remove most of the tumor, not all of it, because it would have affected too many of his motor centers. But he then had a 6 months course of chemo, and
Right.
it didn't work. So then they had to assess the situation, and then he had another round of chemo, another few months worth of chemo towards the end of last year. Now that appears to have worked so far.
Hmm.
He's had various scans, and the tumor doesn't appear to have grown, which is good. But as to what happens in the future, we don't know,
Yeah.
and that's the reason why we haven't planned anything to this point.
Right.
We did rehearse a few weeks ago, and he did quite well. He was worried,
Oh,
and I
good.
think psychological as well as physical. And we were saying, look, Spence, you played really well. At the end of the day, most people aren't really going to notice that much. So we're hoping that we've got a couple of shows lined up towards the end of the year in this country. One is a local one near to us as a kind of warm up, and
Right.
there's a little festival called Summer's End in South Wales where we're going to play in October, and then we'll see how it goes, and hopefully they'll go well, and we'll be able to do more and more, obviously depending on how Spence is.
Right.
Plus of course we've got to learn a load of songs from the two new albums.
That's right. Exactly. You got a lot of music.
Yeah, we really put some of those in the set. So we're going to need a few rehearsals to get those together.
Yeah.
We haven't played for 4 years. It was March 2019 the last time we played a live show,
Yeah.
and that was in Scotland in Kinross, and it was snowing
Yeah.
like it is today, except
Like it
here.
is today.
Yeah.
Have you done the cruises? The
I
prog
did.
cruises?
I spoke to someone a few years ago about the was it Cruise to the Edge?
Cruise to
or
the
whatever?
Edge. Yeah.
And but nothing ever really.
Yeah, you belong on that.
I'd
You
love to do
definitely
it.
belong on that.
It'd be great to do it. Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is if we can get the band up and running properly again, and also it's about confidence because we haven't played for so long. Hopefully,
Yeah.
get it up and running, get our confidence back, play a few shows get a few shows under our belts, and then play a few more after that. It has been a bit strange releasing the Adventurer album and not
Hmm.
backing it up with shows. It's
Right.
quite odd because you're thinking, what else can I do? Oh yeah, the shows.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we'd love to play the States again sometime, but it's
Yeah.
just so expensive these days. And
It is.
it's just, Whereas when we did Rossfest, it was far easier, actually.
Yeah.
So you never know. One day.
And it's got tougher to travel within Europe as well, right? With just
definitely, and the costs right up. You know, I mean, there's a few festivals that have asked us later in the year if we can play, and we've literally said, well, you know, it's going to cost us a few £1,000s just to get there.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's like, it's not that easy. So hopefully we'll find a way around it at some point. There's a few gigs where in Northern Europe, in Holland, Belgium, where we can drive to, which would be a lot cheaper. But flights have just got really expensive. And it's not so much individuals, it's when you start adding in all the gear and what have you, and extra weight, and then they'll charge you an extra £100, an extra £100 for something else, and before you know it, you're paying a couple of grand just to get over there, you know, when there's sort of 7 or 8 of you.
There's so many countries in Europe that love prog too, like Germany. Germany's big.
Absolutely. Germany,
Netherlands,
Poland, they're mad for it over in
right.
Poland. And one thing we realize in Poland, which is great for us, well, great for a young band, is over here the demographic is mainly guys of a certain age,
right.
Our age, because we've all grown up with it. Whereas in Poland and play, it's far more mixed. You know, you get a lot more women and a lot more younger people.
Yep.
You know, and I think it's just because people just accept the music a lot more readily over there. You know, there's no I don't know, there's no sort of there's none of this sort of, well, I can't like prog if I like soul or jazz or something else. Whereas there's none of that, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas over here we've always had these sort of tribes.
Yeah.
You know, you're a rocker or you're a mod or you're a soul boy or you know.
Exactly.
But yeah, but I think it's getting better. I think
good.
You know, without a doubt.
Good. Well, you guys have put out some great music, some other music. I wasn't aware that John Wetton was on Year Zero, and that's pretty cool. I love John Wetton, man. He was such a great performer. I really miss him. You know. Yeah,
he's a good guy. I mean, in fact, I've been in touch with Lisa, his missus, as well recently.
Yeah,
because they live down the road from us. Again, they live in Bournemouth.
Right.
So obviously, John's not with us anymore, sadly. Yeah. But of course, he knew Robert very well, and Robert and Greg Lake. Of course, Greg's gone. But all those guys live within 5 miles of where we are. They're all from Dorset in the south of England. Yeah, I mean, Greg grew up 5 miles from me.
Oh wow.
You know? Robert grew up about 4 miles from me, so it's quite strange. There's this little sort of prog enclave, and of course Greg's down as well. Greg from Big Trains down there, you know, literally.
That's a good band. Big Train's a good band too.
Yeah, I mean they've been down. Right, we actually helped them out in the early days.
Yeah,
helped them their first album many years ago. But
I was fortunate to interview all the guys from ELP. Greg Lake, they're funny guys. They're good. I love Greg Lake. He was so talented, and of course Keith Emerson. You know, nice guys.
Yeah, it's very sad with Keith. I have to say.
I know.
And I mean, Carl's still keeping the flag going. Yep. You know, I saw him with his trio about 3 years ago in a local theatre, and he actually he did. You know, he said a few words about Greg and Keith. And he dedicated a song to Greg because the venue where we played was literally probably a mile from where Greg was born, you know.
Right.
So, so yeah, that was really quite touching. And also, we saw King Crimson play in Bournemouth a few years ago, and Robert did actually acknowledge John Wetton as well. You know, they're both from this area, and that was so sad with John. And yeah, we got him on Year Zero, and he's even been to a couple of Galahad Christmas parties as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Got a lot of stories to tell.
Is that a tradition? A Galahad Christmas party? Is that a tradition every year?
It was. We haven't come on in the last few years because of COVID and everything. But no, we used to go out and go to a restaurant somewhere, then go to a pub and drink maybe a little bit too much. You know.
Yeah, sure.
John did struggle a bit with that, and he certainly wasn't sober when he left. Put it that way. But we all had a good time, and no, it was interesting talking to him about his sort of memories and Asia as well. He was saying, you know, he said, you know, how songs like Soul Survivor and Heat of the Moment, and that sort of kept him going a bit, you know, because that was played massively on American rock radio back in the 80s. And I remember seeing Asia at Wembley, Wembley, back in 1982, I think it was, you know, Wembley Arena. And I couldn't believe, you know, John Wetton, Steve Howe, and Carl Palmer and Jeff Downes, you know, all together. It was fantastic, you know.
I saw John in the '70s with Uriah Heep when he took took over for Gary Thane, I think.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
he was a bit of a journeyman, wasn't he? You know, he got and he played with the ABBA guys, and you know, and obviously King Crimson, and UK. I thought UK were fantastic.
Oh, that was a great band. UK was an awesome band, very underrated. You know,
absolutely. And again, I'm gutted. I was a little bit too young. I never got to see them play.
Yeah,
not that they did that many dates, and I know they reformed a few years later as UKZ, was it, or something?
Yeah.
But again, I didn't get to see that. I wish I'd have got to see that.
Incredible band.
Yeah,
definitely. I just want to mention some of the album. Year Zero. When you look through the years of Galahad, you can see the changes. You know, the different styles and whatever. Year Zero was a great album. I mean, I really, really dug that album. And the other one I really fell in love with was Seas of Change. That was brilliant. Who's talking on the intro of that album?
Oh, that's my neighbor.
That's your neighbor?
He does the dramatics, and he's
really
got a very nice English voice, you know.
Oh, excellent voice.
Read the news. And, and basically, Peter next door, he does a lot of Amdram. And I said to him one day, do you want to come over and I'll record you? He was a bit like worried about it. And he came over and he really enjoyed it. So, he's probably about 30 feet that way.
That's funny. It's like, you know, the band 10cc when they did their big hit, Big Boys Don't Cry, you know, the whispering in that. That was actually their receptionist. Yeah.
Well, I've met Graham a few times, so because obviously he's the sole member now, but they still tour. Brilliant. And Feel the Benefit live, that gives me tingles. I mean, that was probably their proggiest moment, I think.
They're a good band. Also a good band. Yeah.
And so many different influences as well, you know, and the fact they had so many great they were pop songs, but they were clever pop songs, you know, and there was so much variation, you know.
Right.
But from silly stuff to quite serious stuff.
Exactly.
But,
you know what I really loved on Year Zero was the jazz suite.
Yeah.
See, you guys are great at that, man.
And that's got a double meaning because it's dedicated to Dean, our keyboard player's daughter, who's called Jazz.
Oh, okay. How about that?
So, but no, I love the jazz suite as well, and I like the fact there's space because the drums sound quite nice and it's quite spacious.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the music on Year Zero, but we recorded it at a time when unfortunately Neil had just left the band, so we recorded it on tape, and then transitioned to Pro Tools, very early Pro Tools, and put it all onto there. Worked with an engineer we didn't know that well, so the recording quality I've always been a bit unsure about. And it's one album I'd love to re-record with the same quality that Carl gives us, you know?
Right?
Because I think it would sound awesome. I just would love to do that.
Well, it's a great album.
Again, that's what a single piece. I mean, we split it up on the CD, but it is effectively a single piece of music way through.
Sleepers. Who's on the cover? Who's the model on the cover?
We don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
No, we don't know. Well, a friend of ours, Phil, we asked him. He had some ideas, and he reckons that it was a photo of a woman who died, and he managed to get into hospital to make work to the hospital, and he took a whole reel of photos. Used those photos for the album, and even to this day, now whether it was a ruse or not, I still don't really know because we never knew who it was. And word got out to national newspapers, and I had people like The Sun getting in touch. And in the end, I just had to quash it because it was all too much. Because I had to front it all, I dipped out of it really. I was a bit of a wuss, because none of the others wanted to do it. They're sort of, go on, Stu, you sort of, you can talk to them. Oh God. But I love it. It's a fantastic image. It's a beautiful image.
I mean, she's a beautiful, beautiful woman.
Yeah, but we just don't know. It's quite a bizarre thing.
That is bizarre. Wow. Very,
Yeah.
the mystery of Galahad.
Yeah,
And
but apparently,
sleepers.
yeah. Well, yeah. Is she sleeping or is she not sleeping? Or I don't know.
Yeah.
And there were lots of pictures on the reel of
Right.
her as well. And but apparently, and I heard that they think that she was of Eastern European origin, so they never identified her.
You don't
So
know
she
what
might-
year?
An illegal alien or something. I don't know. But
Really? You don't know what year the picture was taken or anything like that?
90, probably 94 or 95.
Okay.
So quite a long time ago now.
But you say she passed away, right?
Apparently, yeah.
Apparently.
This is what we were told by Bill, and he had a friend who worked at one of the hospitals in London because he lived near a bridge in London.
Wow.
And he worked for an advertising agency actually. And he a lot of his photos were sepia based,
Mm-hmm.
and as is the cover of Sleepers, and yeah, so that was sort of down to him really. But
That's interesting.
but we'll probably never know the real
You
truth.
never know.
No.
Well, somebody needs to find out and dig that story up.
Yeah, I'm sure someone does crop up.
Somebody will find out. Some of your other great albums, Beyond the Realms of Euphoria. I mean, the title of your albums are incredible, man. They all sound like movies, you know?
Yeah.
Battle Scars, Following Ghosts.
Yeah. It's bizarre. I mean, Euphoria, I mean, that's why we used the kind of the artwork we used. We wanted something colourful.
Right.
And almost psychedelic, but psychedelic in a modern way, not in a way. And we found this great artist, and she let us use her image effectively.
Huh.
So, but no, we're really pleased with that. And again, there's a lot of other things. There's a bit of kind of dancey stuff on that, which did polarize people to a certain extent.
Right.
But there's a lot of guitars as well. It's still quite rocky in places. So,
now, Galahad Electric Company, how did that start? And I listened to Soul Therapy. I really enjoyed Soul Therapy. Is this the electric part? Does that mean you use a lot of electro or techno type?
Well, yeah. I mean, the idea of the electric company is it's basically duo. It's me and Dean. And during lockdown, we had so many ideas, and we just wanted to record some stuff and get it out there. It was just good to do.
Yeah.
So we did the first album, and then I lost my mum, and that was quite creative. It was quite cathartic because the last 6 songs on that album are all about my mum, all to do with my mum and the death of my mum, etc.
Right.
So we wrote all that, and because it's more electronic, we thought we'd do it as the Galahad Electric Company. Plus, we were already working on a Galahad album,
right?
So it's like it just seemed to make sense to do it as a separate thing.
Sure.
And that's what we did. And yeah, and again, I think we only did 1,000 of each or something, so it's fairly, it's only a limited run, as it were, which are pretty much all sold out now. But it's all online as well. But it's a bit different, and it was quite funny. I read someone wrote a review the other day of Last Great Adventurer, which was quite bizarre. It was a positive review, but it was a bit bizarre because they were saying that obviously Galahad went away and they released 2 very electronic albums during lockdown, which wasn't really to my taste or whatever. And then they obviously saw sense and saw better of it, and then released Last Great Adventurer because it's much more proggy. And I'm thinking, yeah, but it's a different band. It's not the same.
No, exactly.
And the reason we call it Galahad Electric Company is basically because there is a link there. Because effectively on all the last few albums, me and Dean write most of the material anyway.
Right.
It's that with Galahad, we present it to the rest of the band and work on it as a band. Or sometimes they'll present material as well, so we'll work on it together. Whereas the GEC stuff is just me and Dean, effectively. And it was a good training ground for me to learn Pro Tools, to record my vocals at home, because those are the first 2 albums that I did really do that. So I was quite pleased about that. So yeah, we'll probably do other stuff. I mean, I've got about 10 songs that Dean's got to work on, and it's a case of we'll do it as and when we get around to it. So there's a lot going on.
Well, it seems like you knock out songs so easily, man.
Although at the moment, I have to say, I keep thinking about what can I write about. 'Cause I'm running out of subjects.
Wow. You need to write a couple of books to get it all out, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, a lot of those songs are quite old, so
Yeah.
it's just the latest albums are like a culmination of all that old material, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to the current lineup of the band
Right.
writing with, for the next few albums, hopefully.
Yeah.
But of course, I've got to come up with some ideas, some new ideas.
Well, Soul Therapy. Here's some of the songs I liked. I liked All That Glitters.
Yeah.
That's a good song, man. And your voice was outstanding in that one.
A little bit more dancey, that one as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of Faithless was a bit of an influence on that one, to be honest.
Okay.
Because although I love my prog, I do like a lot of other bits and bobs as well.
Sure.
So.
We all do. Yeah.
Mm.
Fluidity. I have a.
That's a half-work one.
That's a hard one to say. That reminded me a little bit of a kind of a Jan Hammer sound, you know?
Yeah, it's a lot of the ideas initially when I sang, I was going fluidity with a with an effect on it and what have you, and
Right.
the reference point there was kind of like Kraftwerk, that kind of thing, a bit
Like
Tangerine.
Kraftwerk, yeah.
Yeah, and who I used to love back in the day because they were so different. Yeah, with progressive overtones, obviously. But
yeah, I used to love Camel. Did you like Camel?
I love Camel. They were one of the first bands I ever saw.
I
mean,
yeah. I would have loved to see Camel.
Yeah.
They never come to U.S. anymore. They're on tour now in Europe.
Well, they got Pete Jones playing keyboards, haven't they? Peter Jones, and he's a fantastic musician, brilliant musician. He plays everything: guitar, keyboard, saxophone, sings, and he's blind.
Really?
Makes you feel like your coat and just walking out. I can't be bothered, And
Great
he's a good
band.
guy. Oh, they're
Great
brilliant.
band.
In things like Pressure Points from Stationary Traveller and Ice from I Can See Your House.
Lady Fantasy, of course.
Yeah, I think someone covered that. I can't remember who did that. Yeah. We covered.
Did you cover Lady Fantasy?
Yeah, there's a Camel tribute album out there, and we were asked to cover it, and we.
You're kidding me.
Do a search. Yeah, do a search. Yeah.
Is it out there? Could I find it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably on YouTube or something, but yeah, Lady Fantasy by Galahad.
Oh, I got to hear that.
And the same record company. They were an Italian record company.
Right.
They asked us to do a Genesis track, and we did the Chamber of 32 Doors.
Oh man.
So that's out there as well, if ever you want to.
Definitely.
That was a long time ago. That was back in the 90s. That was.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a great song.
Oh, Lady Fantasy, I love. It's one of my favorite Camel tracks.
Me too.
I was quite chuffed when they. And at the end, of course, there's the jazz bit. So there's a bit more jazz that you can have a listen to. Whatever it is.
The Living Ghost. That's a beautiful song, beautiful lyrics. Talk about the Living Ghost.
That was actually a song that it was a series about a haunted. It's a bit cliched. About a haunted manor or a haunted house on Netflix, I think it was.
Okay.
And I was thinking about it and it was about someone who was a ghost but almost didn't realize they were a ghost. And it was just these ideas, and that sort of sparked the song, really. And the idea of you're not sure if you're real or not, but people don't seem to notice you. You think, well, hang on, why are they not noticing me? What's going on there? Hang on a minute, am I real? It's like it sort of messes up your head a bit, And that's sort of what that's kind of about, really. Something a bit different. But and Belly Full of Stones also.
Yeah, Belly Full of Stones. I love that title. I love that song too. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's very sparse, and I sing in a much lower register.
Yeah.
Almost kind of. The irony is, around the same time, and it may have been a subliminal influence.
Mm-hmm.
We also recorded "Hurt" by Johnny Cash.
Really?
We've done our own version. Yeah, me and Dean. Huh. And the idea is to do an EP, and we're going to call it Americana,
right?
Which is basically several songs by well-known American Canadian artists.
Great.
So you got Bruce Springsteen, obviously Johnny Cash, And it's a cross between the Johnny Cash version and the Nine Inch Nails version,
Right.
effectively. And Neil Young, and also Flaming Lips, possibly. So yeah, we've got a few ideas.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a EP, a covers EP, just for fun.
It's fun to do covers, isn't it?
Yeah, occasionally. I mean, I prefer obviously to work on the Galahad materials. That's the main thing, own material. But every now and then, it's just nice to throw something in and have a go at it and what have you. And but yeah, so yeah, we did Hurt, and then I did obviously Belly Full of Stones, and again, I think maybe there was a bit of an influence there because I do sing it in a low register. But that was catharsis, because that was kind of, it was how I felt at the time when I lost my mum, and it's like it did feel like I sort of stones inside me or something. It's just like really hurting, and yeah, and I just thought the title worked really well.
Muted Expectations kind of sounded like an 80s song to me.
It is a bit, and some people have said it's a bit musy as well. But yes, it is a bit. And again, that's what I love about Dean. He's not your typical prog keyboard player. He's not a Tony Banks or a Rick Wakeman. He's very much, his reference points are the 80s basically, not the 70s so much. And when he joined the band, I actually had to play him things like some of the early Genesis and Yes, and because he just didn't really know it. And the only stuff that he knew was really things like Pink Floyd, The Wall, Genesis, or the kind of the more poppy Genesis from the 80s.
Yeah.
And the only Yes he really knew was Owner of a Lonely Heart. So very different period.
It is. Yeah.
But we educated him.
Exactly. I've educated my kids. Yes. My son would go to sleep with Yes music. He'd fall asleep with Yes music. So, and my daughter's a big Jethro Tull fan. So.
Oh right, yeah, brilliant, amazing.
She gets excited because I've interviewed Ian 3 times, and she can't believe it,
Wow.
Yeah,
no, I love
Tull. I mean, I've had Ian right here, and we do a Zoom interview too, which is cool.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've seen Tull loads of times in the past, and they're such a tight band as well, really tight band.
Yeah, but, actually, he's got a new album out, but his last album, which was released not that long ago, he's really putting these albums out pretty quickly. They're good. They're awesome. He's getting better all of a sudden,
Yeah, because they did go through a bit of a sort of, I don't know. He started sounding like Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits.
Yeah, I know.
Island. Is this a Dire Straits or a Jethro Tull?
Exactly. I talked to him about that too, and he realized his voice was changing, so he doesn't try to hit certain notes anymore.
Yeah,
he understands, but he sounds better. He does sound a lot better. I don't know if it had anything to do with his pipe smoking or what, but we're just getting older.
The last time I saw them, he was struggling a bit on the vocal things.
Yeah.
I mean, musically they were great. I mean, his flute playing was as crazy as ever. But he did struggle a bit on the vocals, and it's good that he's acknowledged that. Because haven't they got someone else helping them out on vocals now? I think.
Yes.
Live. Yeah. But,
and Martin Barr, I've talked to him several times. He's got his own little Ian Anderson now, fronting the band.
Yeah, it's such a shame that they're not.
It is a shame.
Because again, Martin was such a key part of that band for so many decades, and
it just happened one day.
It is what it is.
He doesn't. He still doesn't understand it to this day. I mean,
what, Martin?
Yeah.
Oh right.
There's no reason for it. He just let him go, and that was it.
Yeah.
Probably wanted to change, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
One of those things. And we can't talk. We've had loads of different members over the years.
Yes, you have.
To make any comment. Yeah.
Speaking of members, I want to give a shout out to the band members. Okay, you on vocals, Lee is on guitar, Lee Abraham, Dean, of course, on keyboards. Mark Spencer is a new guy, right, on bass, and Spencer on drums. Correct. Is that going to be the touring band, or you don't know yet? I guess it depends.
Oh, yeah, it would be. It would be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We've been quite. I mean, this lineup has actually been working quite a long time now, about 4 or 5, which isn't bad. And but yeah, no, it's good. And Mark's he's great on stage as well. And Spence, I think Spence is like the unsung member. He's a fantastic drummer, very natural drummer. And he comes up with some great ideas. And if you listen to his playing, it's quite intricate, some of it. There's some interesting stuff going on. But he's never been one. Well, I think as a band, we're not ones to shout from the rooftops.
Right.
But I think Spence, you know, I sometimes I think he just deserves a bit more recognition, you know, because he's sort of out of the back there and he doesn't have much of a social media presence or anything like that. He sort of, although the irony is, when he's in the band and you meet him, he's like the soul of the party. He's so funny, you know. One liner for everything.
Really?
Know? Yeah, no, he's a great guy.
Have you ever had any conflict with the other Galahad? There's another Galahad out there, a German band.
Yeah, we were in touch with each other years ago. And
really?
We were joking we ought to go on tour together. Galahad plus Galahad.
Yeah, exactly.
They're more of a folky kind of Galahad,
folk rock, right?
Old Jethro Tull kind of thing.
Steel Ice Band, kind of like that, I guess.
Exactly, and again, the Steel Ice Band, another band that I love, and I've a friend of mine, Dad, was very good friends with Maddie.
Really?
And back in the 60s, they used to jive with each other at the clubs in London, and and because he was a blues guy, and she was more of a kind of girl, as it were, and but yeah, they knew each other really well. So whenever we go and see them, we will pop in and say hello occasionally, so with my mate Nick. And but many years ago, when I was at school, they were very uncool back in the early 80s, and they were playing a gig at the local Winter Gardens, the local theatre, which is a nice theatre, about 3,000 people, quite a big theatre.
Right.
And I couldn't find anyone to go with.
Really?
So I literally went to Steel Ice Band on my own.
Oh man.
Great gig.
Yeah. I saw them in concert. They were great in the 70s.
Yeah.
So talented, Very talented band.
Definitely. And the way that they took kind of the folk elements and electrified them, and made them heavier, and bit like sort of what Bob Dylan did, but only a bit, took it a bit further,
Exactly.
But,
I'm friends with Annie Haslam of Renaissance. Do you know Annie?
Yeah. I think I don't think I've ever met Annie, but I love Renaissance. I really do. Song for All Seasons.
Yeah.
One of my favorite albums. I just love it.
She's such a great person. She's fun, talented. She's also an artist. She paints. She does a lot of things. She lives in Pennsylvania.
Right.
For a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And she was married to Roy Wood for a long time.
I didn't know that either. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Stu. Here's your final question, and this is a question I ask everybody. I get some very interesting answers. If you had a Field of Dreams wish, like the movie, to perform or collaborate with anyone from the past or present, who would that be?
That's easy. Peter Gabriel. And Kate Bush.
And Kate Bush.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
They're the. I mean, the only other person I suppose would be Brian May.
Mm-hmm.
I love Brian's guitar playing. I've loved Queen since I was a kid. No, I guess if push comes to the shove, they're probably my favorite all-time band.
Mm-hmm.
Queen, I guess Queen, Pink Floyd, and Genesis, I guess.
Yep.
Again, it's pretty obvious because I'm a prog guy, but I don't want to pick some obscure band or whatever. Right. But no, they're the bands that have always been with me since I was a young teenager, basically.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Queen when they first came out.
Oh yeah, stuff. Queen too, and Sheer Heart.
Oh, the first two albums. Remember Ogre Battle? Remember that?
Yeah.
Ogre Battle. Yeah.
And they got a hard time. Everyone was saying they were like a camp Led Zeppelin. I thought, well, not really. They were actually more good than Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin was quite. You listen to the early albums. I mean, I love Led Zeppelin as well. But some of them are quite loose.
Right.
Whereas Queen, everything was nuanced. Everything was in its right place.
Nobody sounded like Brian May on guitar. He had his
No,
own voice, right? Nobody
exactly.
sounded like him.
Well, him and his dad built the guitar. There was
Yeah,
only those guitars, the Red Special. You
yeah,
know, it was built out of a fireplace and a bicycle saddle and all sorts of stuff lying around the house and what have you. Very clever.
amazing.
There's now hundreds of them mass produced.
Exactly. I tried to go see Queen back in the 70s. It must have been like 73, 74, a long time ago. I was in New York, and we were there for a wedding. And it was the Uris Theater in New York, and it was Mata Hoople and Queen. And I went to,
Hey,
go ahead.
I want to show you something quickly. Won't we say? It'll take a few seconds, right? I want to
Sure.
show you something. I'll be back.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Well, you're
There you
kidding me with Mata Hoople. Yeah. How about
Yeah.
that?
First tour. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's in my downstairs toilet.
Huh. That's funny. You got posters all over the place. So do I. My room's got a lot of posters too.
On that tour, that was when Brian was ill and he had to fly back to the UK because he wasn't very well, and he was a bit, well, it's a shame, but yeah, no, it's yeah, just a great band. So
Great band. I tried to get tickets, and at the hotel they had a concert, and the guy made fun of me. He was such an idiot. I said, "Yeah, I want to see Mata Hoople and Queen." He says, "Mata what?" He says, "Get the hell out of here." He wouldn't give me the tickets. He thought I was kidding him. I was making up a name or something. I was so mad. And I had hair down to here and, dressed flamboyant. I don't know. Maybe he thought I was strange or something. Who knows?
Yeah, no, possibly.
Possibly, yeah. But I was in New York. Everybody's strange in New York.
Well, I've only ever been to New York once, actually, and that was on for work, so I didn't really get to see much of the city itself. But one day, so
yeah, you'll come back. What was your first concert? What's the first concert you ever went to?
it was either Camel or Judy Zook. I can't remember which came first.
Huh.
Early, maybe 81, something like that.
Right.
But I did see another band called the Wurzels, who were kind of a folky kind of band. They would never done anything in America, very English, but they were like a country band, and I saw them before I saw anybody else.
Right.
Saw Queen at Milton Keynes in 1982, which was fantastic because I'm glad I saw them, because obviously we weren't to know what was going to happen to Fred a few years later.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm glad I've seen most of the bands I've wanted to see. My only regret is I've never seen Supertramp, and I've never seen Led Zeppelin.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw Zeppelin twice, and I saw Supertramp. One of their first tours. I saw Supertramp. Yeah, they were fantastic.
Well, I'd love to have seen them around the time of Crisis Not Crisis, and even in the quietest moments when they were more prog. You know, and I mean, Breakfast in America is a great album, but it is
Crime of the Century. That was the album.
Oh, stunning. Yeah,
they did Crime of the Century, and they had the bars, and they had the piano, da 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 da, and then you see the bars, close up, and it goes farther away. It's really cool. Blew my mind.
Brilliant. Yeah, because that album itself is so well recorded.
Yes.
For the time. Is it 74 or something? It's
that's right.
Nearly 50 years old. You put on that record, it sounds amazing.
Bloody well, right.
Yeah, right.
I had Roger Hodgson on the show. I had Roger on the show. He's a good guy.
Oh wow! Yeah. Maybe if he does do something again, I'll go and see. I've seen some stuff on YouTube when he's done some of the Supertramp stuff, and it's great. Yeah, and I'd love to do that again. They sort of split up. I don't know when I was just really getting into music. So that was really so.
Great band.
A real shame.
I'm going to send you a link on ebook. My book. It's called The Rockstar Chronicles.
Oh, brilliant.
Over 45 interviews that I've done. This is series 1, and I think you'll like it. I've
Yeah,
got
sure.
a lot of people that you enjoy, and I got a lot. There's a lot of people on there like Keith Emerson and a lot, Greg Lake, and
Mm, mm.
interviews I've done with those guys. A lot of guys that are not here anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
I
No,
think
that
you'll
would be
enjoy
great.
it.
No, I would. Again, I love the whole history of
Yeah,
rock and prog and reading about those people and all the lots of different interesting facts and all that sort of stuff.
right.
And Dean was saying the other day he's listening to it's like an audio book on Trevor Horn.
Yeah,
And very interesting.
yeah,
because again he learned a lot about Yes that he didn't know before.
yep,
The fact when they did 90125 that they weren't sure who was initially it was going to be called Cinema. It wasn't even going to be called Yes, was it?
right.
It was. And then John got on board, and they thought we've got to call it Yes because John Anderson's
Yeah.
singing and what have you. But I think, and also I think Trevor Rabin probably played more keyboards than Tony Kaye on the album.
Yeah.
But although Tony obviously did the tour, I saw that tour. That was good. That was Wembley Arena in 1984. So and the same day I went to London and I gave a demo tape to the managers of Palace because they'd lost Ewan Lowson, the singer.
Hmm.
And of course, Alan Reed ended up singing with Palace in the end.
Right.
But alas, they didn't want me. Plus, they were based in Scotland, and I was based in Dublin. Quite a long way.
Well, you got a great voice, man. You really do. And
No.
you look great. You look really good. I think I'm older than you, though. What? How old are you?
Yeah, I think you probably are. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm 59.
Yeah.
So,
I just turned 64.
Oh, right. You don't look
Yeah.
it, I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Looking
Yeah.
good on it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
We're doing
Yeah.
something right.
I was a bit older though sometimes because I was slightly too young to see a lot of the great rock bands
Right.
live in
Right.
the day. And of course, I was only 16 when Led Zeppelin played their final
Right.
concert, although we didn't know it was going to be their final concert, but I'm glad I got to see Queen and
Hmm.
Floyd and all those sort of bands and Genesis loads of times, and Peter Gabriel, always put on a great show.
What you missed are cheap ticket prices. The average ticket price when I used to go to concerts was $650, $550, and $450.
Yeah,
And it was like three bands, like Jay Giles and Peter Frampton and Mountain. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was incredible.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a club locally in the 70s and 80s in Bournemouth. Again, I was too young, but
Yeah.
I got a ticket stub for AC/DC at this club,
Right.
£1.50.
At a club?
And Blondie played their first ever gig in Europe at this club in Bournemouth
Really?
in May 77. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ticket price was, I think it was 70p,
Wow.
less than £1.
Wow. Incredible. Those are the days. I saw the Stones for $9.
Wow, that's amazing.
Front row. I was on the front row because I was actually working at the arena at the time, and they held tickets for the people that worked there. So I went by myself, so I had front row, and Mick looked at me and gave me such a look, man. I was like 16 years old. It was it's when they had Goat's Head Soup came out, that album. Yeah. And Billy Preston was in the band, and Tom Scott, I think. Tom Scott was in the band. Yeah.
No, it sounds like you've seen a lot of great gigs.
A lot of gigs. A lot of gigs, yeah.
Yeah,
Now I'm interviewing them all. I got a good job. Stu, I want to thank you, man, for being on the show today. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you as well. Yeah.
I want to say purchase the latest release by Galahad, The Last Great Adventure. It's available. I guess you can go to your Bandcamp site, which is galahad1.bandcamp.com, or it's available at Amazon as well.
Yeah. Or our official website, which obviously means we get all the money that way, which is
better, much better.
Yeah, galahadonline.com.
Online.com. You're on Facebook. You're on Reverb Nation. You're on YouTube.
Oh, I never checked Reverb Nation.
Really? You're on there. I'm on
Yeah,
there too.
yeah. It's like, well, I think Bandcamp and our official website are the main kind of places.
Right.
Like you say, and Spotify, so we get our point not
Exactly.
the stream.
Well, looking forward to the new album. Sounds great. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, no,
Um, your most recent album, I gave it 5 stars. It's incredible. You guys are a great band. You deserve a lot more. You really do.
yeah, no,
And
thanks.
and if
Yeah.
there's anything I can do to help you out here in the, do you have a PR guy
Oh,
here in the States?
say that again.
Do you have a PR guy that helps you out with state?
Not really.
No.
We used to have someone a few years ago, and I've forgotten his name, and I hit the company actually. But we haven't really got anyone these days. I mean, basically, I do everything.
Right.
I run the band with my wife, Lynn. It's a shame she's not about. She should say hello. But yeah, I mean, we go through Gonzo, which is Rob Ailing's,
Right.
in the UK, but for distribution and what have you. But we've recently started dealing with the oh God, what's the name? It's a new bunch that have started, and my brain, as usual, has decided not to work properly. Sorry
That's
about
all
that.
right.
It happened. I can't think of people's names and what have you. But yeah, so
Okay.
it's a little bit over there, and I've done I've done this interview with you is great, and I've done a few others with people. I've got a few lined up, which is fantastic. And
Yeah.
as you say, the guys in America that have cottoned on to Galahad have been incredibly supportive.
Right.
And I have to say, and I'd never forget that Rossfest gig. I mean, we just came on stage and everyone went, "Yeah!" It's like we haven't done anything yet, but it was so warm, it was so warm. Yeah, I mean, hopefully, we're getting on a bit now, but hopefully we might be able to get over to the States at some
Good.
point. You're in Florida, is that right?
I'm in Florida, yeah, on the West Coast near Tampa. And we love our prog here in Florida as well.
I remember Rodney Marsh used to play for the Tampa Bay Rowdies back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah?
British footballer with Manchester City. He played for Tampa.
Sorry about that. I got a cold.
No worries.
Tony K lives around here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of rock stars around this area. Brian Johnson, AC/DC's got a house
really?
here. Mick Jagger just bought a house here too for his girlfriend.
Oh, right.
Yeah, about 15, 20 minutes from me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
And Rick Wills also.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, where I live, where the sandbanks that's mentioned in Omega Lights, that's a peninsula as well, obviously by the harbour.
Right.
That's where John Lennon bought his Aunt Mimi a house back in the 60s to get her away from Liverpool, so she could be, and she lived there the rest of her life basically. So he used to come down actually incognito, and he would just be wandering about, and people wouldn't really notice who he was because it was out of context, Mm-hmm. But yeah. So So how's the weather in Florida?
Gorgeous. It's always warm here. Let's see. Today is probably looking around 78. Yeah, it is 78 degrees right now.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
No snow.
No snow. Yes, that's pretty unlikely.
Yeah, we got a lot of Brits here. They're snowbirds. We call them snowbirds. They're here half the year, and then they go back to England the other half a year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
A lot of Brits here.
Yeah, I have a few friends who do a similar sort of thing. They'll go off somewhere else for the warmth in the winter.
Yeah,
and sort of come back to Blighty for the summer months, as it were.
There's a lot of pubs here, a lot of English pubs.
Oh, right.
Because there's so many Brits.
Yeah. Any English beer?
Yeah.
Oh. I'll see you soon.
You're welcome anytime. Well, a few beers together next time you're here.
Yeah, definitely.
Stu, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I look forward to the new album and hopefully a tour.
Yeah, no, that'll be good, and we'll keep everyone posted, obviously. And hopefully talk to you again soon.
Very good. We'll keep in touch, Stu.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, man. My best to the family.
Cheers, thank you, and the cat who was just making
And the cat,
noises.
I heard the cat.
Yeah, well, I'll show you the cat.
Cat's probably hungry.
But no, this is the cat. This is Sammy.
Is that Sammy?
He's only got
Aw.
three paws. Look. he's
Oh,
only
look at
got one.
that.
Yeah, he had cancer. He had to have a paw taken.
Oh,
Go. So
a pretty
but
cat.
he's an English grey basically, but he
Huh.
is purring. I think he's quite happy. I think
He's happy. Yeah, if they're purring, they're happy. If they're hissing,
Anyway,
they're not
my boy.
happy.
That's right. I better let you. There you go. You go. I think he wants food.
All right, Stu.
Yeah.
All my best. Take care.
Anyway, take care. I can't believe that Sammy's just appeared on the interview with it.
Why not?
Anyway, you take care.
You too. Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.